Okay, hello and welcome everybody. My name is Melanie Dizon. I'm the Director of Education and Content at the Phinney Foundation. And today I am here with a whole slew of ambassadors. We are feeling like the Brady Bunch clan today. And we're going to talk about support groups. We have a lot of questions from people saying, I don't belong to a support group. I haven't heard anything about a support group in my area, who have questions about starting one, want to know how to make them successful. And so I have gathered this very experienced group of people to talk about just that. So I'm going to call on each of you as I see you on my screen. If you can just tell us who you are, how long you've been an ambassador, and your experience, how long you've been doing support groups and what kind, that would be great. And then we'll get into some of the deeper questions. So Patty Burnett, you're the first person on my screen.
And as you said, Patty Burnett, and had Parkinson's since 2013. I apologize because we're driving from a doctor's appointment now. But let's see. When I was diagnosed, I knew that I needed to be part of a support group. And so I found somebody who already had Parkinson's, and sure enough, she had just started a support group. So we helped. I helped her some, and then eventually when she got tired of it, three of us took over, and that's our status right now. It's been wonderful.
Oh, great. Thank you. Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol Klubney, and I live in Hermiston, Oregon. When I moved here to get my first job out of college, there were 7,000 people in this community. And since then it's grown. But I was diagnosed in 2008. And in about 2010, I realized that I was pretty lonely. So I asked the physical therapist, I said, we need to start a support group. And she goes, you will start it, Carol. So my husband and I started the support group here, and we've gone on since then. And we've been the facilitators for all these years.
Wow, that's great. Thank you, Carol. Stan.
Yeah, I'm Stan Livingston. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. I've been diagnosed for about 8 years with Parkinson's. And I facilitate two support groups with help from others. One we do after a rock steady boxing class, and then another one in a different community we set up to that meets actually after a different exercise class. So that's been going on for 3 or 4 years.
Nice. Awesome. Greg.
I'm Greg Richer. I live in Panama City Beach. I was diagnosed April 26, 2011. So that's almost 12 years ago tomorrow? To the day. Yeah. And tomorrow I have DBS surgery. So April 26th is turning into my second birthday.
Oh, wow. That is.
So I kind of look at it. I have a lot of experience with setting up support groups. I set 2 up in Colorado, and then when we moved here, couldn't find one, so started another one here. It's called 3085 Thrive. 30 and 85 is simply the longitude and latitude of Panama City Beach, and Thrive is what we intend to do despite having Parkinson's. That's in a nutshell my story. I would also add that I think it's pretty obvious that humans are pack animals. We like being in a pack. We like belonging to a group. And there's, especially when you have a disease like Parkinson's, there's a huge socialization need that's met with that.
Great. Thank you. Joe.
Yeah, hi, I'm Joe O'Connor from Sterling, Massachusetts. Kind of a funny story how my support group came about. I was going to another support group, and I had gone up to the senior center where I was working for them in different capacities. And I said, it'd be really great if we brought these people up. So I went down and talked to the people that led the support group, and they said, why don't you do it? And then I was seeing my motion specialist and she said, there's really need for a support group in Northern Worcester County. And I said, So I went back to the senior center person, and I said, well, I got good news and I got bad news. Good news is we can get a support group going here. The bad news is it's me. But I've been doing the support group now as long as I've been an ambassador. Well, a little bit longer than being an ambassador. I started my support group in March of 2018. We went right through the pandemic together. And I agree with the comments about socialization. because it was difficult for people to get with Parkinson's to have socialization during the pandemic, we went to a once a week schedule, and we would just get together and play games and talk about what was happening. But I think, you know, I just want to say to people that are thinking about leading a support group, do it. It is an incredibly beautiful experience. I mean, it's just so wonderful that you can make that much of a change in somebody's life with such a little bit of effort on your part. I mean, go ahead and do it. Don't be afraid of it. If you're afraid of it, contact the foundation. They'll put you in touch with one of us and we'll help you to get over it.
Yeah, oh, thanks, Joe. That is great. Michelle.
Hi, excuse me. I'm Michelle Lane. I was diagnosed in the year 2000, so it's easy to figure out 23 years ago. I have been an ambassador for 5 years now with the Phinney Foundation. And it was back in 2003. I met two gentlemen that were diagnosed around the same time as me, and there were no support groups except one little tiny one that had a few older people. So we started the young onset group, and it became welcoming to everyone and grew very large until COVID hit, and we couldn't have it at our location anymore. So we just started our second group now.
Oh, great. Thank you. Patty.
Hi, I'm Pat Wargo. I'm from the downtown Pennsylvania area, a little place called Center Valley. I'm new to Lehigh County, so I'm doing a lot of seeking out to see what's available to people. There are support groups available in the area, but I also belong to Rocksteady Boxing Group, a club, classes that asked for a support group, and so I started one with them for women with Parkinson's, and also for care partners. So I have two groups going once a month. My background is in working in schools and with schools and one of the things that I did with them was to teach them how to do groups and how to identify kids, how to work with people, not just kids. So there's basic group facilitation skills that I've had for many years, including my professional life, probably about 30 or 40 years now that I've been doing groups. My Parkinson's started I was diagnosed in 2004, probably started a lot sooner than that. And I had DBS surgery about 7 years ago, and that's been wonderful. Good luck, Greg. I hope your experience is as good as mine is. And I feel great. I feel like giving back as an ambassador for 2 years now. I give back to my Parkinson's community, and it's very rewarding. I encourage anybody to get involved with doing things like this.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. Doug.
Hi, everyone. I'm Doug Reed. I'm in Lafayette, Colorado, just outside of Boulder, just outside of Louisville, where the foundation headquarters are headquartered. I've been an ambassador for just over a year now, and I was diagnosed in 2010 when I was 36. So I attend a general Parkinson support group meeting that meets monthly. I regularly attend a young onset meeting support group that meets monthly, and I co-lead a DBS support group that meets monthly via Zoom.
Great. Okay, well, we have so much experience on this panel. I'm so appreciative. Just by a show of hands, how many of you, for those support groups that you lead, how many of them are solely in person? Okay, all right, so about 50%. How many are hybrid? Sometimes you meet in person, sometimes you meet. Okay, all right.
We also sometimes meet at the same time, virtual and live.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Well, that's good to know. How many people run a support group that regularly over 20 people attend? Okay, great. So Michelle, you've got a big group. Obviously that one big group, you've had to move or you've split into another group. Is that right?
actually split into another group, then COVID hit and we lost the facilities. 'Cause we had a
Okay.
we had a daytime and a nighttime group.
Okay.
One was at a hospital, one was at assisted living, so we couldn't go to either one. So
Great.
finally, they started back.
Okay, so I'd love to, some of these are going to be, pretty quick. We've got people that have a ton of questions. But so let's kind of walk people through it. So you decide, hey, I gotta run a support group. There's a need, you find a need, and you decide to do it. What are some of the ways, the most effective ways that you've used to recruit people? Joe.
Big thing that people tend to overlook is houses of worship. Because they don't tend to take things down.
Like flyers?
Announcements.
My church has a Lenten flyer from 2 years ago up, okay? You know what I'm saying? But it's an advantage to you. You don't have to worry about the fact that you have to go and refresh it. Also, people look in the back of those kind of places and they say, oh, there's something, and they feel more comfortable finding it at a location like that rather than like on the side of a store. They want somebody looking at over their shoulder and going, oh, you have Parkinson's,
Yeah.
That's one of the other ways. The other way, another good way, of course, is senior centers themselves, although they do have a habit of taking things down. Like there's a senior center that's about less than a mile from me. That is not the one I use, because the one I use is just over a mile from me. And they keep taking down my thing, and I go, just leave it up. I mean, if people need it, they'll use it. And they go, well, no, we want to make sure we get it up to date. And I'm like, it doesn't change.
Never expires.
But the last thing I like to say, another good location is libraries. Libraries are also very, very good, and they're also very good about not taking things down again.
Great. Thank you, Michelle, and then Carol.
We take the flyers and of course put them in the physician, the neurologist offices. We also create a welcome packet sometimes with the Phinney Victory Counts manual in a little bag. Doctors give it to the newly diagnosed, excuse me.
Yeah, that's a good little swag bag. Carol?
We knew just about one or two people with Parkinson's when we started our group. So we got going with flyers all over the community, in the laundromats, in the bulletin board, at the supermarket, just everywhere, as well as dropping them off at any health allied health alliance, whatever, like speech people and PTs and all those people that somebody with Parkinson's might see. We also did social media. We put an article in the newspaper, and we tried to cover every base. Oh, my husband went on the radio. Yeah.
Of course he did. I love that. Patty Burnett.
Yeah, as I was thinking about this, I realized that I wish that we had a website, and I'm sure that there's somebody in our group that probably is pretty acquainted with starting a website, and I'd be curious to know with you guys, do any of you have websites?
Oh, not from
Greg?
Yes. Yes, to answer kind of both questions, coffee houses are another great source of things, and so are gyms. We found that we get a lot of activity out of gyms. Patty, to answer your question, yes, I think it's always critical. It is not me. I'm not a technologically oriented person, but I found a person that was willing to create a website and put all structure who we are, what we're trying to do, what our vision is, what our mission is, what our objectives, what do we talk about, and put all that onto a website for the people that are technologically savvy and doing that. And that's my middle daughter, and that gives me fathership override.
I love it.
Is that the veto power?
Yes.
Actually, it's almost the opposite. I should have said because she comes up, Dad, you just don't understand. And this is what people want. You're like, oh, okay. I would send out the exact same message 17 times. And she goes, no, Dad, there's a thing called groups, and you're like, oh, really?
Right. Efficient. So when you were recruiting, how did you, what were some of the things you did to make sure you got the right people? Or were you just, hey, whoever has Parkinson's is the right person? Did anybody have any? Yeah. Okay. We're all on board for that. Does anybody have anything different there? Just come no matter what. Okay. Patty and then Doug.
Well, when we started the group at RSB, we wanted the women to have a place to go with their issues. They're different, some of them. And so we advertised it as Women with Parkinson's, and that there were like 19 women that showed up the first time. That dwindled down quite a bit. And now we have about 6 people that show up, on a regular basis. Not same 6 all the time, but around 6 at each session. So
It's not me.
That's great. Doug?
Well, our group is for people who have DBS or for people that are considering DBS. So it's kind of unique in that facet. But we do have at least one gentleman who was interested in DBS and decided he didn't want it, but still wanted to be part of the group, because we do talk about all things Parkinson's, and in addition to just DBS related issues.
Yeah, great. What would you say are some of the challenges or surprises that you've had to deal with, negotiate as a group leader? Joe, and then Patty.
Yeah. I think the biggest one is that sometimes people feel very comfortable and will want to have what we call a pity party. And you have to allow that to happen because it's real, but you can't let it swallow up the entire meeting, because all the other people will feel like they didn't get a chance to express themselves. So it's a kind of a tightrope walk that I've experienced. A number of people in the group that have had trouble and stuff like that, and they needed to, but also needed to not, completely monopolize the meeting.
What are some of the strategies you used when that comes up?
I'm a former Toastmaster. So what I do is I believe in a clock. I'm not saying that I have a clock that I show them or anything like that, but I believe that, people, if we have an hour-and-a-half meeting, which is the length of my meeting, and we've got, 20 people, then I believe that we've got to limit people to a certain amount of time each time, like maybe 5 minutes. On the other hand, if you have like a 7-person meeting, and I've had 7 and smaller, in fact, then you got more time. And if people want to talk longer, that's fine too,
Yeah. Okay, Dan and not Dan, Patty, and then Stan.
So I think that,
I find that we have a tendency we want to talk about living, right? Even though there is dying that goes on. And so we're really active, and we concentrate on living better, like is our philosophy with Davis Phinney. But for some reason, it just hit me really hard the first time that we lost somebody from our group. And so I guess a bit of surprise about people dying, even though that should not be the case. And so we needed to figure out a strategy how to deal with that in the proper way.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the things that you did together to process that?
Well, we tried to do a good job of attending memorial services with each other so that we had closure. We talked about it, we talked about it as a group, just so that people could feel like they were able to grieve in a good way.
Yeah. Great. Stan?
well, when Joe was talking, it made me think of trying to find a balance between living well, like the Davis Phinney recommends, but also recognizing that Parkinson's is a very difficult disease for many people. It's progressive, and there's a lot of, as we discussed, many difficult aspects of it. So I think in a support group, we need to find the balance between finding the good things about the positives, and also not ignoring the negatives or recognizing the negatives.
Greg?
Yeah, I was going to say, in regards to both of these topics, one of the things that we work on or early in establishing a support group is, what are the topics that are near and dear to these people? What do they want to talk about? And death is certainly one of those issues. We, about 3 months ago, experienced the first passing of a person in our Florida group. We have had social workers come in and talk to our group, an organization that I'm a part of called Jack's Hope, that is basically a loose affiliation of about 17 support groups in Northern Florida. We're in the process of interviewing and hiring a part-time social worker just to handle those issues. We had an issue one time, divorce. A newly diagnosed gentleman and his wife came. They came to one meeting, didn't show up for 2 more meetings. I called him back just to check in, and he said, his wife said, "That's it. I'm not going through this," and checked out. Those are the kind of things that they're not going to happen every time, but you need to be, sort of prepared. And that's where resources like Every Victory Counts, and, things that national and regional organizations have the size and the capacity to help you with. So you've got to be in a position to talk about that. We've incorporated I have couple of speakers, and I've developed a list of speakers on all the different topics, because I think that's critical for a new support group getting started. Who do we get to talk about? And Wayne Gilbert, he's a creative writer, and we've done some poetry sessions with him, both live and Zoom, and we've done some therapeutic art. After Jack, the gentleman that passed away, he loved art and he loved painting. And so I went out and bought some easels, and we had a Jack painting party instead of a pity party. And everybody drew, what made sense to them in the world of Parkinson's. So I think it's, fair to assume that anything that's going to happen to a normal person is going to happen to a group with Parkinson's. It's just being prepared and reaching out when you get stuck with, when I called the guy and he goes, "My wife divorced me," you're like, let's see, what experience do I have with that? A none, B none, C none.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start dancing, Greg.
Right.
But
Okay.
you get through it, and the more resources that you can show people and help them do that, I think the better they feel about being involved in a group that's there to help them in their time of need.
Yeah. Pat, I have a question for you, as this, being part of your actual profession, and there are a lot of people that will tell me they feel ill-equipped. What if somebody brings up an issue that's, really a big issue and they don't know how to deal with it? What's some things that you can offer people for handling things like that in the moment?
Well, I think, first of all of you are good listeners, and that's a primary requirement, I think, for a group facilitator. I also think it's okay. It's okay to say that you don't know or you don't have the answer. I'll find out. Does anybody else in the group have this experience? So it's not just on you. Especially you've got Parkinson's too. You're going to have emotions and feelings about the different topics that you cover in group. And it's important not to think that you have to have all the information. If you keep the EDC book next to you, you know, it's always good to refer to. So, well, let's look that up and see what this has to say. I think that when I did groups, I did mostly kids groups, but I did do a lot of adult groups too. Now that I think about it, earlier in my career, the types of things that people come out with sometimes are very surprising and scary to you yourself, and can hit a chord with you that twangs, you know, that doesn't feel so good. And I think that it's important to lean on the other people in the group to help you through that, whatever that issue might be, and be very okay with, I'll come back to you with information about that. I'll give you a call this week and let you know what I find out, so that you're not feeling like you have to remedy the world's ills with just you. You know, that you don't have all the answers. And so keep that in mind. You're still a good leader, a good facilitator. You don't have to have all the answers.
Right. Thanks, Doug, and then Stan.
I was just going to say, Patty brings up a good point that everyone with Parkinson's is different, and sometimes you may not have experienced the same things that other people have experienced.
Right.
But if you know others in the group may have, or in my situation, I'll ask the group, has anyone else experienced this?
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
And
Stan?
it's good. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Pat.
That's exactly right. Asking other people, especially in doing this type of group where we can experience losses, we can experience people going through DBS and not having a good experience, people who have had a wonderful experience, and make sure that you allow time for that people to process those things. I never go into group either but saying this is the agenda that I have for today. You know, I have ideas and I have things that I think the group's ready to talk about, but I don't push on my agenda on them. You know, that the group has to, you know, what's going on this week? How's everybody doing? And trying to do like a game or an icebreaker at the beginning that kind of just lets people loosen up and feel welcome, especially if you have new people. That's important too. So.
Thanks.
How often do groups
Stan, and then
meet?
Joe.
Yeah, so I would just build on those. Those are really good ideas. I think that, you know, one thing I try to do in our groups is to develop a sense of group identity, that this is our group and we can make it what we want it to be, and we can support each other. And if we work together, we can all have the answers together.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I think a good facilitator can do is to identify the problem. You know, we're feeling sad about this, we're feeling angry, you know, this is scary, you know, and just sort of help the group understand to some degree what's going on, what's being discussed, and then asking the group for solutions. Because, you know, we're all in it together, we can all learn from each other. I learn more from them and when I go than they might learn from me. So it's really helpful that way.
Mm-hmm.
Stan.
I
Joe?
think of it as like a continuous brainstorm activity going on. I just want to say something, Patty. You mentioned games. Games are really a good idea. I always pack at least 2 games with me when I go to my group meetings. Even if you just like something like Trivial Pursuit and you come up with some sort of absurd question, people get a laugh, they start to interact, and they feel more comfortable with each other. And it's also good cognitive training. So it's a 2 for 1. You know, so I just think one of the things I always do is I always pack a couple of games with me. Nothing sophisticated, nothing hard. In fact, the online games are really good in that respect, because you don't have to carry more than your phone. You know, but those are really kind of helpful. They, like you were saying, breaking the ice is a very important thing, especially when you have. And I don't know if other people are experiencing this, but I've had sort of a turnover. We lost some people due to COVID and stuff like that, but now people are coming back and I'm getting newer and newer people. and they're feeling less and less comfortable because of many, many reasons. So what you want to do is you want to make those people feel like, okay, this is a good place for you to be. You can be calm and healthy. And I'll shut up.
Pat, you have something about that? Yeah.
One of the things that you can do as a facilitator, and I find this really gets people more comfortable, is to break it down into small groups. I did a presentation for our PD Steps program last month, and the guy who organizes it is a physical therapist, and he was really surprised that I did this and it worked really well. I said, yeah, well, it's worked for me for a long time. Where I asked a question, I gave the groups, I broke them into small groups and gave them a question to talk about. And it wasn't anything, real hard or that they had to have a lot of information about. I can't remember what the question was now, but I give them a question and have them work on it, and then I float around from table to table and just make sure that everybody's getting a chance to participate. If there's anything that is coming up that I notice somebody's looking like they're having trouble with it, with the discussion, that I might bring a comment to the table myself. But making sure that they know that I'm listening and I'm circulating, as well as the group is becoming more comfortable with each other because they're talking maybe with somebody they hadn't talked to before. Because they come in and go out, and they stay for the program and then they leave, and so it gives them time. It breaks down their defenses. It gives them time to feel comfortable with each other. Because asking people questions in a large group, especially Michelle, your group is really large. To do that successfully, it's difficult. Unless you have some tricks up your sleeve,
Right.
So
Thanks. Michelle?
I have a trick we've done a few times. We do a few times a year. Take the care partners and put them in another room. And put the patients together. So the patients can discuss things, without the care partners there, and the care partners do the same. We can't get the care partners out of the meeting. They're laughing and enjoying each other.
That's right. Yeah, the times we've done that, it's the same thing.
How many people here have both the person with Parkinson's and care partners in the group, in their groups? Yeah, everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
Almost everybody. Yeah. Great. Greg, did you have something? Yeah.
Yeah, I put together a deal. I think for me, you have to answer the 4 basic questions of what's going to attract someone to a support group. Number 1, what's Parkinson's? What is it? What are the questions you ask when you first hear you have Parkinson's? What is it? Why me? Why did I get it? What's going to happen to me now? And who can help? And then I have a format that, it says what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about community, hope, exercise, education, research, and self-advocacy. And so that acronym is CHEERS. And so we just came up with an acronym. So when people say, well, what do you do at your support group? We say there's going to be information and a speaker on any one of those arenas, so that people kind of have a sense of what to expect and they don't come into it blindfolded or dumbfounded and doing that. And then the last thing I'll mention, I've heard this from a couple of people now. They don't like the comment, oh, I would never join a support group. They seem to have a negative connotation to support group. That's why we named ours 3085 Thrive. Doesn't say anything about Parkinson's, doesn't say anything about support group. But our slogan is, we're not here to find a medical cure. We're here to help you find your cure. And that seems to resonate with a lot of people, that's what they want to hear. Everybody's Parkinson's is different. There's no one, map that's going to solve all the problems. And we're just a collective group of people trying to figure it out together.
Yeah, that's great. Patty.
Yeah, that is really good stuff, Greg. You know, as I've been thinking about the questions that Mel told us, I realized that we so much as leaders, we have a 3-person leadership, and we so much need to be positively living the way we say that things are important. You know, we need to be doing the exercise, and they need to, like one guy came up to me at our last meeting and said, I want to be the way that you are, as, you know, when I'm 10 years down the road. And so it's so important for us not to just be telling people what to do, but actually be living it out so that they see it happening in our lives. Walk the talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
Does anybody have any something similar to Greg in terms of, you know, that's clear, this is what we do, this is what we talk about? Does anybody have any, maybe call them like rules of engagement that you share with new members or anything like that? I feel like whenever I did group counseling, we always did, you know, sort of rules of engagement, but sometimes it's different, you know, with an open group than with closed groups. So anybody have any thoughts on that? Patty?
We don't have anything written like that, Mel, but what we do is hopefully we are, again, being polite, you know, allowing people to talk so that nobody is dominating the conversation. Just making sure that we're really kind to each other. We're loving each other, encouraging each other. You know, we're like family to each other. And especially in cases which it so much surprises me, you know, was it Greg who said that he had a couple that got a divorce when that was in their support group? If we can encourage each other and be family to each other, that's huge.
Yeah, thanks. Carol, and then Joe, and then Michelle. And then
We talk a little bit about confidentiality and how, you know, if you don't want to hear somebody talking about you at the grocery store, it's a good idea. Just kind of keep this under your hat. It belongs in our group.
Yeah, that's great. Joe?
I like the family concept. Been through a lot of things with some of the people in the support group, and I told them right straight out, I said, I love you guys. I said, you're my second family. I mean, and they looked at me like I was, you know, I said, no, I really mean it. I mean, we've been through so much together. I mean, we were in a group meeting when the Capitol was, you know, the January 6th was the Wednesday. So we were in a group meeting, and I remember us all just going, not that we're trying to be religious or anything like that. We all just said we wanted to say a prayer for the country right at that moment because that's how we felt. And I think that's the thing. I think Patty's right about not having a list written down, but understanding it. And absolutely, I always tell people, you know, whatever you say to me is confidential. And but if you want to say stuff about me, yeah.
Michelle?
It's funny, we have a social hour or half hour either before the meeting, and then it usually will turn into after the meeting again, so that people can gather and speak, you know, and get to know one another.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's nice. It's nice. Patty? Were you going to say something, Patty?
Oh, yeah. I think that basically what we're talking about is creating a safe space for the people that are in the group. And you're all doing it very well. And you don't have to have a long list of written down rules. But the confidentiality is really important to let people know that we need to keep what people say stays in here. Or if you want to talk about it with that person outside, talk about it with that person when nobody else is around. But creating safe spaces and that family feeling is marvelous. That's just a really good way to put it. You know, that you're there for them through thick and thin. You know, it's real important. But confidentiality is probably the most important thing in creating that safe space.
Right. Greg?
I found a cute little way to do it. My daughter, who is a teacher, showed me this. It's a little placard, and it's saying, you know, everything you need to know how to live your life correctly, you learned in kindergarten.
Kindergarten, yeah.
Kindergarten,
And
yeah.
so kindergarten rules apply here, and I put that out at the beginning and I've never had an issue.
Right. That's great. Is there anybody who's ever had anything that was, a real challenge and you beyond the just normal things of a day-to-day, but it was a really difficult challenge? And is there anything that you could share about how you navigated it? Carol, and then Joe.
At one meeting, the husband and wife came. The wife was in a wheelchair. She had Parkinson's, and the husband was her care partner. And they came in and just this god-awful fight. They were yelling, and I thought he was going to hit her. The physical therapist who started the group with us at that time was there, and we were at the hospital, so she went out to find some help. And she got those people out of our room somehow and into the social worker's office. And so that was a good place. And that social worker helped them work through some things. But I ended up helping them go to the assisted living and checking out, separate living situations and such. And it was really a challenge for me to, want to protect the woman and want to listen to the man. And, it was just quite an experience.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
you were in the right location for that to happen.
Yeah. Better than Denny's in the bar. We
Right?
met there for a little bit.
Private library room somewhere. Yeah.
We meet in the bowling alley now.
Oh, Joe, and then Pat.
Yeah, so we had a situation where we had a guy come onto the group meeting, and he was young onset, and he was pretty much suicidal. And I recognized that everything was being said to him was upsetting him further and further and further. So I'm going to use Joe was his name. I said, Joe, I said, if you want to talk about this, let's talk about it offline. And I told him, I said, he was like, I'm very depressed and all this kind of stuff. I said, well, I would suggest you do what I did. And I said, go see a psychiatrist, go see a professional. Well, to make a long story short, I just saw him today. He's had DBS surgery. He's doing really great. He recognized me more than I recognized him because I hadn't seen him for like 10 years.
Oh,
Like 3 years. So, it was, but the whole thing about it is, it goes to what Patty was saying in a different way. And that is, realize you can't handle everything yourself. Some of these things are beyond our capabilities, and for the sake of the people, we need to involve other people's. And Carol, your thing sounds scary.
yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine it was.
Yeah. Pat.
Well, I'm trying to remember now what I was going to say because
Sorry.
I had my Parkinson's moment, not working well. I think that part of what we need to do as facilitators is to have a safe place for ourselves to go to somebody to talk, because those two situations that you two just shared are serious enough that they have an impact on you emotionally. So having somebody either from the group, preferably from the group, or co-facilitator, or the social worker involved, or the physical therapist, somebody you can sit down with after the group and process with them what had occurred or has occurred, so that you're not left hanging, and going home and carrying those emotions and feelings home. It's not like
you think about as professional therapists, I always had somebody, right?
Yeah,
when really tough situation. And then I was trained to do that for a job.
Yeah.
So, stepping into these things, it's a lot. And I think it's really great. How many of you have co-facilitators that co-facilitate?
Not right now.
A few of you. Yeah, it's tough. Okay, gosh, I feel like I could just keep talking about this. It's so interesting. Let's talk about, what have you learned from running a support group in terms of your own experience with Parkinson's? What have you learned? Yeah, Patty.
I am finding that by helping other people, it's probably the best possible thing, the most valuable thing that I can do for my own health. So it makes me feel like I have purpose. I'm needed. And that's been huge for me.
Yeah.
Feeling.
Ditto. I mean, that's. I agree.
Ditto. Said that.
Ditto.
Yeah. Anything else?
Well, it's just being part of a community, you know, and for me, it's being part of the community. We all, I think with Parkinson's, a lot of us tend to be more isolated, and just getting out and being with other people more and sharing. I've learned a lot about Parkinson's just sort of preparing for groups and learning about topics, watching webinars, and sort of try to educate myself. It helps me to deal with the disease.
Yeah.
Those
Doug.
people that they're not alone. The
You're not
newly
alone, yeah.
diagnosed, they're not alone. There's those like you.
Yeah, we've all heard the expression, if you've met one person with Parkinson's, you've met one person with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
But it's really hit home to me how different each of us are, and
Yeah.
how much we share experiences too.
Yeah.
So some final last pieces of advice for people who are watching this and kind of went from, oh gosh, I want to start a support group. I'm starting a support group. This sounds amazing. What is the sort of nugget that you'd like to share with them? Patty, and then Joe.
I would say that to somehow get across to everybody that's part of the group that it's not my group, it's their group, and give, for instance, one guy said he really hoped that we would have a session that talked about research, where, you know, cutting edge things that are happening within the Parkinson's medical community. And I said, okay, then why don't you lead that group? And so he's doing the research about research. And I feel like even though he's just a pretty new member to our group, he is taking leadership, a leadership position. So it's his own group. He's taking ownership, and that is really important, I think.
Yeah, that's great. Joe?
I would just say, do it. It's going to be the most difficult at times and the most rewarding all the time experience that you're going to have. You're going to meet people that are going to not rely on you, but they're going to be really, really interested in understanding what other people are doing out there. And don't be afraid to let people come up with their ideas. We've had, there was a gentleman whose wife had trouble turning in bed. She would always pick up static. So he found a way of getting her a grounded blanket, which is a blanket with just a ground plug on it. Never heard of that before in my life, but it was really, really something. So, I mean, I just say, be ready for an experience that's going to be fantastic.
Love that. Carol?
That you will be appreciated. You may not feel it right away, but you will know that those people in your group appreciate your efforts and the time that you've taken.
Greg?
I'm into free drugs, and when you help other people, your brain emits serotonin. There is no more powerful, happy drug than serotonin. Costs you nothing but your time, and you're helping another person. The one other thing that I would mention is we have a whole list of what I call tricks of the trade. It's a whole little section that we talk about. So whether it's safety around the house or any issue, we share what are tricks of the trade. You know, nobody's been doing this long enough with Parkinson's to write everything down. So just share what you've learned, that, you know, writing a will, you know, getting your finances in order, whatever the people want to talk about, and then keep track of those. I sent to you earlier before we started, Mel, a whole list of things that I use when I'm helping a new support group get started here. And so feel free to share that with whoever you want to share it
Great.
with, you don't need my permission, just send it out to people. But I think, all of us that have Parkinson's are in this to defeat this disease in our generation. I know I am. There's no reason this needs to keep dragging on. We just need to start getting the funding and the awareness, the research, and what are we doing to help everybody else with Parkinson's live a better life? And so to me, that's the ultimate goal of what a support group is about. And so anything that I can share with, and help anybody else, I'm happy to do it.
Right, thank you. Joe?
Just one last comment from me. Be sure to check out the larger organizations. The Phinney Foundation can help you a great deal. The PMDI Foundation has monthly meetings for support group leaders where they can just get together and chat. Be sure to use those to your advantage as well. Don't just limit yourself to looking around your area. There's much bigger organizations. Parkinson Foundation, the APDA, they all have programs to help support group leaders, and take advantage of them.
Yeah. And you've got, 8 people on the screen who know a lot about what they're doing. So we'll put the link in the chat if anyone wants to reach out to one of you. Thank you all so much for your time. It was really great. I know people are going to be so grateful for the advice that you've offered, the support, the encouragement, and I will put a lot of links in the show notes for this. So thank you, Patty, Carol, Michelle, Stan, Joe, Patty, Doug, and Greg. And Greg, we wish you the best tomorrow morning with your DBS.
Yeah.
We hope to have an update. And thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Mel.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great day.